subscribers, viewers. So if you have a spooky story that happened to you and you want me to cover it, please send it my way. My email is tinylittlewhispersasmr@gmail.com, and you can obviously, you're more than welcome to remain anonymous. But yeah, if you have a story, whether it's true crime, a scary story, or even a ghost story, feel free to send my way. Also, if there is a spooky true crime case you want me to cover, you are more than welcome to reach out to me there as well. But let's go ahead and dive into today's case. So today we are discussing the serial killer, Shawn Grate. Now, I typically like to title my videos based off of the was not even awake. But the authorities managed to break inside the house, get Jane out, and then go after Shawn and arrest him right then and there. Now, the police went searching around the house and found that Jane was being held against her will in an abandoned house that Shawn had been living in illegally. When the cops began looking around this abandoned home, they definitely found more than they had bargained for. After entering the home, saving Jane, and then arresting Shawn, the police smelled a horrible stench throughout the home, and sadly, this was the smell of decaying remains. The body of a strangled woman was found in a closet of the home, and this closet had just basically been taped off. And then the body of a second strangled woman was found in the basement of the home. The police immediately took Shawn in for further questioning, and while he was being questioned by the police, this is when Shawn opened up and admitted to killing several other women over the years. So, let's backtrack just a tiny bit and discuss who Shawn Grate actually was. So, Shawn was born on August the 8th in the year 1976 in Marion County, Ohio, to his parents Terry Grate and Teresa McFarland. Shawn had several siblings, however, his parents' relationship wasn't always the best, and his mother would often neglect Shawn. Even though Shawn had trouble in school, he was known to be very, very charming and got along rather well with all of the lady teachers and the girls in his grade as well. When Shawn was 11 years old, his mother ended up abandoning him and his siblings to go live with a new man in Kentucky. Shawn really struggled with this and held a lot of resentment and anger towards his mother. Shawn obviously grew up some more, and while Shawn was still in high school, he ended up getting arrested for grabbing his girlfriend's throat at the time. At some point after high school, Shawn even broke into his girlfriend's house and hid under her couch with a knife and tried to attack her, but he did not get in super serious trouble for this for some reason. Then, after graduating, Shawn was arrested after breaking into a home in October of the year 1996. Now, Shawn was sentenced to 4 years in jail. However, he ended up getting out by October of the year 1997. After this initial jail stint, Shawn wound up having 3 children with 3 different women, and he even got married. Shawn was known to basically hop around from woman to woman, using these various women and then becoming jealous, angry, and even abusive towards them before 2007, the police found an unidentified woman deceased alongside the road in Marion, Ohio. This woman was believed to have passed away at some point either in the year 2005 or 2006. While being detained for questioning after kidnapping Jane Doe, Shawn admitted to murdering this unknown woman he believed was named Dana. Now, like I said, the police at this point in time were never able to identify the remains back from 2006. Shawn claims that he was living with his mother around this time and that Dana was a woman going door to door selling magazines. Shawn's mother had apparently purchased a few subscriptions from Dana, but she never received her order. One day while Shawn was out, he saw Dana going door to door again. Shawn convinced Dana that he wanted to purchase some magazines himself, and Dana ended up getting in the car with Shawn. At some point after Dana got in the car, Shawn grew angry and decided he was going to murder her since she never gave the magazines to his mother. After Shawn murdered Dana, he left her body on the side of the road. Even though Dana's remains were found in 2006 and Shawn was arrested in 2016, it wasn't until the year 2019 when the unidentified remains were matched via DNA to belong and be identified as a woman named Dana Lowry. She was 23 years old at the time of her disappearance and death. After this first murder, Shawn claims that he did not go after anyone else until the year 2015. The police find this really long time period very odd, as most people who have murdered typically murder again. It typically goes, a little bit longer and then shorter time periods between murders, especially when it does belong to a serial killer. So the police don't necessarily believe Shawn when he says that, it was quite a while before he murdered again, up to almost 10 years. So in the year 2015, the police found another body alongside a road once again in Marion County, Ohio. The police investigated and found that this time the remains belonged to a woman named Rebecca Lacey. Rebecca's cause of death was ruled as an overdose at the time. Rebecca had been known to struggle with drugs, and even though Rebecca had been missing for about a month, the police said that she most likely passed away due to an overdose because of her current lifestyle. Once again, though, while Shawn was being questioned for the kidnapping of Jane Doe, he claimed that Rebecca had not passed away due to an overdose, but instead he had strangled her, since he believed Rebecca had stolen $4 from him. After this murder in 2015, the time between his killings began to grow shorter and shorter. In the year 2000, Candace sadly was not reported as missing though, since she had recently told her mother that she was moving to North Carolina. Candace also supposedly had an issue with an addiction to drugs, and Candace's mother assumed that after she didn't hear from Candace for a while, that Candace had returned to regularly using drugs and was just not reaching out at the time. However, once again, when the police spoke to Shawn about the kidnapping of Jane Doe, he claims that he killed Candace himself. Shawn then even led the police to where he dumped Candace's body, which was behind an abandoned house in Marion, Ohio. Shawn had set the abandoned house on fire after leaving Candace's body behind in the hopes of it being destroyed by the fire and never being found. Then in August of the year 2016, a woman named Elizabeth Griffith goes missing. She was last seen at a Walmart in Ashland, Ohio. However, for reasons unknown, she was not reported as missing until September of the year 2016. The police confirmed that one of the bodies found in the home where Shawn was arrested belonged to Elizabeth. It is still a bit unknown as to why Shawn murdered Elizabeth, but he claims that he did. Then in September of the year 2016, a woman named Stacy Stanley went missing. Stacy was reported as missing just a week before Shawn was arrested. Stacy had apparently gotten a flat tire, and Shawn had happened upon her while he was out. Shawn offered to help change the tire for Stacy, and in return, she offered him a ride somewhere. Sadly, Shawn murdered Stacy, and her remains were found as well in the house where Shawn had kidnapped Jane. Now, Jane's true identity has never been made known to the public, just due to what had occurred and happened to her when she had been kidnapped by Shawn. Jane told the authorities that she and Shawn were friends and had been walking, and basically she went into his home, this abandoned house. She did not realize that it was abandoned truly, and that she was reading a Bible there. They were talking about the Lord and the Bible, and that is when Shawn